All right, we are live. I'm Kristen Abel, and I worked with Sue Caulfield to coordinate the essay commits series, committed series that was on the Student Affairs Collaborative blog, and we've got some folks here with us that also contributed to the series, and we wanted to just talk to them a little bit about their involvement in the series and what the impact of mental health has been for them. And we've just got a few questions and thought we would go ahead and keep sharing information about this because we do feel like it's an important topic that we want to keep talking about. So if you guys each want to introduce yourself, Shane, why don't you go first, and then Jessica, and then Jessa.
Sure. My name is Shane Cadden, and I have been in student affairs for about 15 years, and currently in between life positions at the moment, seeking out my next opportunity, whatever that happens to be. But feel very passionate about the area of taking care of our staff as well as our students.
Your turn.
Oh, which way are we going?
You.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jessica Fantini. I am a residence hall director in Buffalo, New York, and I have been working in student affairs for 6 years, going into my 7th. One of the things that I was compelled to participate in this series was I wanted to give it a voice, and I wanted to be able to continue on with the discussion. So I am looking forward to where this goes.
And I am Jessa Carpenter. I'm currently the Student Services Coordinator for a brand new online dual enrollment program at the University of Florida. I just got my master's degree in student affairs last year, but I had a career in hospitality administration and event management before that. And I became involved in mental health and student affairs because Sue Caulfield, who helped Kristen with this whole shebang, Ama Marfo and I did a presentation at the Dalton Institute on grief, where we presented our personal stories, and my experience with grief has sort of brought me towards this idea.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about the committed series itself and your particular involvement with it. And so we've got a few questions here to ask, which if my Google Doc will work, I will ask you. Okay, there we go. Can you first, in whatever order you all want to go now, just tell us a little bit about how you felt when we approached you to write for the committed series? Not all at once, though, you know.
I was really excited to be moving forward the conversation because I had spoken to so many people at both the national conference at ACPA and also at the Dalton Institute about mental health for student affairs professionals, and I guess am less good at follow-through than Sue is because she sort of brought this to the next step for me, and I really, really appreciated that someone was turning it into action.
For me, it was interesting. I had actually been blogging about mental health and my own mental health for a little while, especially after the the incident that happened in Vermont, and that the Huffington Post article came out with student affairs professionals get suicidal too, and it was one of those things where I had just started talking about my mental health and kind of my path and kind of where I was going with it. And so when Sue started talking about it, I really do not remember how I got involved or how, I just remember getting an email from this person I didn't know, and I was like, I don't remember if I signed up for this or what. But it was one of those things where, this is an opportunity to continue the conversation, and I had just done a blog not too long before Sue had contacted me about, I'm still talking about it. We're still here. We're still struggling. We still have these things to go through, and no one else really continued that conversation. So I was definitely on board and really wanted to be a part of it.
So we've been having some weather. So is it my turn?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's your turn.
So it was a question of how we got involved. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was how do you feel about, or how did you feel when we approached you about getting involved in this series?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think we're about to have like major lightning things here in Florida, in sunny Florida. So
Awesome.
yeah, you probably just passed through Jess's area and probably headed towards me now. So um, I was involved. I got to attend the Dalton conference this year, and I got to attend Jess's session about grief, and I thought it was great. I thought they did an excellent job, and my background is in master's in theology and counseling, so I have an interest in that type of area as well. So, when I was approached by it, I was just I was just pleased that people were willing to talk about it, and because I've always been open to talk about stuff like that with my students and my staff because I'm a pretty open book with people. So, and I generally try to advocate. My tagline I usually use is advocating for authenticity and meaning making, because I try to encourage people to do that and embrace their life for their brokenness and their not brokenness. And so I think that this was something that I was just very pleased that people were continuing to talk about beyond the great session at Dalton, and that we could actually focus on the fact that this is a daily aspect of all of our lives, but particularly in this field. And it's not somehow that we're all perfect in this way that sometimes we convey to students, or students take that perception. Oh, we shouldn't go to counseling because these people don't go to counseling. Well, of course we do. So I think that I think it's good to tell students, oh yes, I've been to counseling. In fact, I have a counselor now. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and I'm very fortunate that I have somebody that's that good, on a regular basis, because a lot of people don't. But I think a number of things have been made me excited to be approached to join in the dialogue, and like you said, to keep it going and not just have it be a 1 month special, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't know if you all have heard about how Sue and I kind of came about working on this, but she approached me probably 2 weeks before May and was like, "So I've been mulling over this idea, and I need to flesh it out." And she's like, "I've been thinking about doing kind of a comic strip about mental health, but I'm not sure what to do with it." And I said, "Well, why don't you have other people write blog posts about it, and then you can pseudo those and do a series that way." And so that's kind of how, like, the two of us kind of came together with this, and we're thinking about how we might make the greatest impact. And we know her pseudos have been very popular, and I think that really added some richness.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But that really added some richness to the series that helped a lot as well. So we were excited to have as many people participate as we did, and definitely excited to have all of you participate. So we appreciate you also taking part in this too. After you got asked to write these pieces, and after you actually published it, can you talk a little bit about some of the reactions that you had from people, whether it's people at work or people online? If you're comfortable talking about those, that would be great.
I actually did a really bad job of promoting it to the people that I really know, because I'm still telling people about it. Like today I said, oh, I have to do this hangout tonight. And they're like, why? Why are you going to go hang out with people? I was like, oh, that blog post I wrote, no, okay. So I think I still have to do that. But a lot of people connected to me because of it on Twitter and by email to talk about their circumstances as well. And the same thing happened after our Dalton presentation. It seems like people really want to talk about this, and they want to share their personal stories, and they want someone to sort of reassure them. So when you put yourself out there in a vulnerable way, it encourages other people to be vulnerable as well, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah, and not to step over you all, but just like to explain some of my experience with this too. I started writing about my depression a couple of years ago, and I have had so many people reach out to me through email or through Twitter or through whatever, and just let me know that they struggle with it too, and they appreciate me sharing it. And sometimes they message me and say, look, I'm in the middle of a really bad episode right now. just talk me through it for a minute, please, or just, can I talk to you about it? And so I've had that happen too. So it's been amazing, some of the feedback I've gotten.
Can I ask you, Kristen, because I've been wondering about this, after you came out, I guess you really do come out when you're talking about grief or depression or mental illness, but after you came out, I guess, do you feel a responsibility to the people who are reaching out to you now?
That's a great question. A little bit, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's definitely some responsibility involved in it, and I think that that's partially why I got involved with this too, because I felt like I had been a voice for a while in for mental health and student affairs. I mean, certainly there was a point where people were sending me, every time there was an article about mental health and student affairs, it was showing up on my Twitter feed, on my Facebook page. People were definitely letting me know that that's how they thought of me, as being a voice for this issue in student affairs. And so I wanted to continue that. And I think there's the thing that I have to remind myself is that especially now, I'm not the only voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's been a really good experience and a good learning experience for me, because for a while I was one of very, very few voices out there. And so I think the responsibility felt much greater at that point in time, whereas now there's all these voices that have added to the conversation, and that responsibility is kind of spread out among us a little bit.
It's interesting too, because when writing the blog was not really difficult for me, but I had, and Kristen knows this because she helped me kind of rework it, but it was one of those things where I could write it on my own blog and that was fine, because I knew that not many people read my blog. So I'm like, no one's going to read this, so it's fine. Like, I can say whatever I want to everything. But when it came to this, I struggled a lot to have it make sense and form into a good post. And then when it got posted and went up, I really didn't promote it either. It was one of those things where I am still working with kind of letting people know that I've struggled and letting people know kind of what I'm dealing with and how that is. I do find that it's easier for me to promote it through Twitter and my blog and those types of things, where I know that not many people that I work with or that I know close follow me on those things. And I don't know why that is, and I know I need to work on that. But it was definitely an interesting experience. And to be honest, I mean, when I don't even remember when, but I found Kristen's blog, and when I was reading that, I was like, I'm not alone. And so that really was kind of motivation for me to start sharing my stories. Because then I was like, well, Kristen's not alone, and she's doing this, and she's been doing it for a while, so I can do it too, and then she's not alone, and someone else is out there, although I never, and I still don't have as many blog readers as she does. But
the thing is, Jessica, I don't think you have to work on that if you aren't ready to, because opening yourself up like that to the people in your life, it does make you... It gives you a little bit of responsibility. Like when someone comes to me and wants to talk about grief things, I have a responsibility now to talk to them about it, because I've been so open about my experience with grief, and they come to me wanting advice or whatever it is. If you're not ready to have that responsibility, which is totally fine, because I was overwhelmed by it when it first happened after the Dalton Institute. I thought I was ready for it, and then I was not. Sue can probably attest to...
You were ready.
The amount of people that I drank that night probably does not indicate that I was. But I thought that I was okay with it, and it ended up being really overwhelming. If you're not ready for that, then that's totally cool too. Maybe you need to talk about it in a more private sphere, or not share it with the people in your personal life. I mean, and whatever it is you're comfortable with, that's what you should do. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and I think... Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think there's something to be said too for being prepared to talk to people about it. Like when I'm blogging about it or when I'm presenting on it, I'm prepared for it. I posted it on Facebook and had people come up to me like in the workplace and say, "Oh my gosh, I read your blog. That was so amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, we're not talking about that here. No, like I'm no, like and I've gotten better about that, but it's still hard when I don't have my kind of presenter personality turned on and ready to talk about this issue, because I'm not necessarily wanting to talk about my depression with people face to face, but I'm wanting to talk about the issue of depression.
Right.
Yep.
So Shane, we haven't really let you speak.
No, it's okay because I think I lost you during the question.
You lost it. Well,
The thunderstorms in Florida, love them.
So what we were talking about is, what was there much of a reaction to your piece? Did you have much of a response, or what was that response like to your post going up?
Sure. I think most people, because I consider myself to be an open book, I think most people that saw it weren't shocked by the fact that I was as open as I was about, oh, I almost died, and oh, that caused some anxiety and things of that nature. So I think I think for some people it was like, oh, it's nice to hear you actually do something or write. I've had people on me for a long time to just to blog, and that's something I hadn't done for a while. And when January came, after the Dalton thing and getting that kind of off my list, it was like, I really need to do the blogging thing, and I'm a person generally, I don't like a lot of attention. I don't mind being an open book. I don't mind helping people. I don't mind sharing who I am with others to encourage them to share who they are with others. But at the same time, I'm somebody that doesn't love the spotlight on me, because I like to be the one to lift everybody else up, and I don't want it to be about me. So I think
you're in good company, Shane. From like judging from everyone smiling and like,
Yeah. So I think if my information, what happened to me, if people can be helped by that, then that's great. But certainly, I put it out there on Twitter and Facebook and different venues like that, and for some people it was, oh, that I hadn't talked to in a while. It was, oh, you almost died 5 years ago of a pulmonary embolism. I missed that page. So I guess they got a little update about that kind of stuff. So but I think in general the people that know me weren't very surprised, because I've talked about pretty much all that stuff with people before. I just haven't put it on paper or on electronic place on the internet. And for Sue to add cartoons to that, which is pretty cool. So we're very, very talented there. So definitely makes the story better. But for me, it was I guess it wasn't as impactful for me, because it wasn't something foreign for me to share, because those are all things I've been very comfortable sharing. And I mean, they're still hard things for me to deal with as a person, but I guess they're not. It's probably more hard for me to actually talk to myself about what those things all meant to me than it is probably for me to talk to all of you or anybody else about what they meant in general, because it's, again, I like helping people, so therefore if it helps people, great. But sometimes when I'm by myself in my own head, and I still process to this day. I mean, I was telling somebody this morning, one of my old RAs from like 12 years ago, oh yeah, I almost died 5 years ago of a pulmonary embolism, and the look she gave me was just like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, and she's like, and they never figured out why. And I said, nope. And she's like, that's distressing. And I'm like, yep. So I mean, it's one of those things where it was good to talk with her about it, because to fill her in on what was going on. But then in the car afterwards, when I got in the car again, I had to go to that place of anxiety of, they never figured out why. That is distressing. Still to this day, it's distressing to me. So I mean, sure. Life happens, but it's one of those things. It's a constant coping. Some days are harder than others, and some days when you're in between jobs or unemployed or whatever terminology you want to use, like I am currently, it definitely adds some more anxiety to the plate, knowing that I have a health history at this point, and that's scary when you're you're in this place of currently paying for Cobra coverage, and you have a health history. So.
There's so much stuff that can, it's like you dig it up over and over and over again, and you never really know how you're going to react. Like, telling the story one time might be a lot easier than telling it the second time or third time, or Jessa, our grief presentation at Dalton was a really good example of that, how we were doing a run-through, and I like had a major breakdown during our practice session. Meanwhile, I've told the story like a billion times and was fine during the actual presentation, but you never really know when it's going to hit you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a result of writing on this, we were just kind of, Sue and I were curious, have you had anybody express like support, or have you felt any greater support as a result of doing this?
I would say, I was trying to think about it. I think because I really haven't shared it with people that were really close to me, I haven't noticed it as much. And there was definitely, some comments on the post which I responded to, which was nice, and kind of like shares and such. But I really haven't seen that as much. For me, I think it's just knowing that now people are talking about it and are continuing to kind of bring up different topics so that it doesn't go away. And I've kind of, I've been, using Twitter to keep the conversation going a lot, and using the essay commits hashtag a lot on there. But I've now started really using it on Facebook too. So I'm sharing it more with people that are close to me, just not letting them know everything. And that seemed helpful because people were like, liking a post on Facebook or sharing it and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, at least they agree, or they are on board with what that is discussing, and that to me has been supportive. And then one of the things too is I actually started therapy, and part of that was thanks, Jessa. Part of that is I had to make an action plan with my therapist, and I had to come up with people that's in the case I needed them, who were two people that I can call, and I had to ask two people to be those people I could call, and that took a lot for me because, of course, I picked, the one person I chose was my sister, and we don't talk about this type of stuff, so bringing that conversation there, and then the other one was a very close friend of mine, so asking them was very difficult, but knowing that they were there and they both said yes and they're both supportive was kind of more than I thought and more than what I was expecting, but it definitely made a huge difference.
That's pretty cool.
I go through these periods of like wanting to be around people and needing to talk about my experience and like actively doing something about it, and then completely withdrawing. So after writing this blog post was not easy for me. In fact, I started it and then like had to leave work early that day because I was so overwhelmed by remembering and thinking back and all, and trying to figure out my emotions about that time. And then I had to come back to it like right before the deadline, so that I felt pressure to complete it. And right after that, I sorry. So I think I withdrew after I submitted it, honestly, a little bit, which is probably why I didn't share it very much. And it was good for me because it reminded me that I needed to recommit to seeing my counselor again, because I'm maybe like a month without seeing her, and normally I see her every 2 weeks now. So I made an appointment after that, but I also kind of stopped being so active on Twitter for a minute, and etc. Just so I could have, I needed to withdraw. So no, I haven't felt more support, but I have reconnected with my counselor, and this is part of the reason why.
Cool. Yeah, I remember when I first posted about my depression a couple years ago or whatever, and just the outreach of people who are like either saying, "Wow, this is really brave. This is great stuff. This is really authentic." Which part of me is like, why is this so brave? Why do I have to be brave to post about something that so many people struggle with? But at the time, nobody was writing about it. So I really appreciated that level of support. But I think what I appreciated more was the people who reached out to me and said, I struggle with this too. Thank you for speaking for me. And I think that had so much more power behind it for me, that that was a type of support in a way.
Did Shane come back, or he's?
I'm back now.
Okay.
Sorry, it's I don't know. It just the weather.
All good.
About support, right? Did I get that somewhere along the way?
Yes. Yep.
Piecing together the chat here. Sorry. I think it's probably the nice part of this, but one of the support things which I always know that I have, but it's because my mom is like one of my best friends in the world, and I think even though she knows my whole story, it's always, I think it's still always a positive, affirming thing when your mom can read something like that and just do the little quick message of, hey, I'm really proud of you. Like, just that little thing still means the world, even though again you're helping other people, but it's still just that nice thing that you can feel like, well, I've done somebody proud, and knowing especially that I scared the heck out of her, being in the hospital with that whole ordeal, and putting her through that. So it's nice that my little way of saying thanks was, somehow being able to contribute back and sharing that, and having her be like, thank you for sharing that, because oh buddy, I'm still here for you, and that's always a nice thing, because she's a pretty cool lady. So
That's awesome.
It was funny because as we were putting together all of the stories and getting, Kristen and I had the privilege really of having like a sneak peek of everyone's thing before it went up, which was so cool and so intimidating all at once.
Yeah.
But this knowing that I was going to be the last post of the series, and that my boss was right before, like a couple of days I think before mine, it was nice because it gave us a chance to revisit that conversation again. She's really the only one who I formally told that I started therapy at work, because I had, as I wrote, I had to leave work an hour early to make an appointment that would be covered by insurance, which was really important to me. So she's the one who I told, and then it kind of gave us the opportunity to revisit it again and say, she's like, so how's that going? Like, how, are you still keeping up with it? Like, what's the deal or whatever? So we got to have a conversation about that. And then we got to have another one again when I told her about the book. So it was like kind of cool to have this reason to follow up about it, whereas I might not have walked into her office and said like, oh, hey, I'm doing okay, by the way, type of thing. So this was a good opportunity for that, I think.
Yeah, as I mentioned, my some folks at work read it, and my boss was one of the people that read my post and came up to me like the day after and was like, wow, your post was so amazing, and thanks for sharing, and totally totally wigged me out at first. But like after I thought about it, like after of course I messaged Sue and I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? She was like, that's really cool, and I'm like, you know what, you're right, that is really cool that she came up to me and said, like that was her way of offering support and saying like, I support what you're doing, with not only that you struggle with this and that I'm here for you, but also that I'm supporting that you're doing this whole series, and that that is something that needs to be done, and it's great that you're a part of that and doing that.
Heck yeah.
Well, Sue, do you have other questions? I think I've gone through our questions that we had come up with.
I only really have one, and it's how do you feel that the illustrations changed your stories?
And of course you have to ask.
I mean, it was, so the original idea for this was for it to just be a comic strip, but I mean the stories are just the level of bravery could not have been just done in a few pictures, I feel, and I think Kristen feels the same. I'll speak for both of us.
Mhm.
So like, I'm glad that they were just like a couple of points throughout the story, but I'm curious to know like if people commented on them at all specifically or anything like that. If no, it's okay too, obviously, but
I love that Wayne's shirt had a gardening joke on it. You obviously know me so well.
yeah, I tried to tailor them and not keep it light, but, you know, remind you that it's good for people to see that, you know, this is still the person they know, even though they may be seeing another side of it. So, Jessa, that was my way of bringing you into it.
I liked it.
I really enjoyed. Oh,
Go ahead,
Chris.
Jessica.
Okay. I was gonna say I really enjoyed mine. It was interesting because I wasn't sure what was going to be turned into like a pseudo, and I enjoyed that you definitely picked out the major pieces of it, and it was interesting too. So I was like, how does she know what I look like? Like, how did that happen?
You did a lot of Googling.
Yes. So that was really fun to see because it was a surprise. Like although I had written the blog and I knew what I had said in it and what kind of topics I covered, I had no idea what you were coming up with. And for me, I think that was the best part of it. Just because I mean I can write a blog and say pretty much anything at any time, but getting something from someone else that tells my story was probably like the best part of it for me. I really enjoyed that, so I appreciate that and thank you.
Thank you for trusting me to do it.
No problem.
I think it's cool. You know, I mean, one of the things that was nice about it was to have somebody read it and get it so much. Like
Yes.
that, and that's what the Soodles kind of show is that, hey, there's somebody who's reading this and they get what I'm trying to say, you know, that I'm not just speaking to an empty room. There's somebody out there that gets it. Sue knows this too. She Soodled not just mine, but my partner's
Yeah.
post. And I had read my partner's post, which was kind of hard to read, as it was. It's always kind of hard to read something. I mean, even though it was a wonderful post, and he did a great job writing it, and there's nothing there that I don't already know in a lot of ways, but it's also different to read it.
Yeah.
But her Soodles for the post were really emotional for me to look at because there was pictures of my partner, there was pictures of my son in there, and it just was like, wow, she's totally getting our life. Like,
Yeah.
she gets it.
It's because I love Aiden. Can't not include him in there.
I think it was nice for me. I mean, you know, having had finally met Sue back at the Dalton conference this year, so I think that helped with the trust thing for me. You know, I mean, initially just in thinking about it, but being able to sometimes when you go through trauma or grief or anxiety, I mean, any of these types of topics, sometimes it's almost like you're living outside of your own body anyway. And I think these depictions were almost kind of another opportunity to say, oh yes, so like let me look at that from outside of myself and see everything that was going on. So that's, I think, as I was living that much of the last 5 years or so, I think a lot of times I felt like it was an out of body experience anyway. So being able to see the comics to go with it, it was like, oh, okay, that's kind of like what the out of body experience would be like. So it kind of allowed me to almost relive it in that respect too. So it kind of provided me the inner humor that I needed to be able to kind of relive through that period of time, especially closer to what had happened. So it was a good cathartic kind of moment, I guess, for me.
Cool.
But they meant more. They certainly meant more to me because I actually had Sue in living, breathing form to be able to attach to the drawings because I had finally got to meet her as well. So
I'm going to meet everyone eventually. I'm determined. Going on a pseudo book tour.
There you go. That works.
I get to go with you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Sue, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I know that you are super empathetic. How hard was it to read everyone's stories and internalize all of that all month long? How often did you cry?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Kristen knew what she was taking on when I asked her to be like my partner in crime with this. Let's put it that way. Um, it was definitely difficult because pseudos up until this point tended to be like these quirky little things that came out of, something sarcastic that someone said or something funny. And I remember drawing like spam bots one time and someone playing a video game and all of these things. So I never really drew something serious for other people until this point. And I remember, Kristen, I don't think I told you during the first couple because the first one was yours, but the couple following that, it was just, I know I said it time and time again, I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I was very afraid to, not do justice to what had been written. So that was difficult. And then just like you called it, I mean, the first time reading through some of these things, I was like, holy crap, like everyone, you forget often that everyone has a story, and in this specific realm, they tend to be have a little more depth to them, put it that way. So yeah, they were definitely difficult to read, and it was a heavy month. It really was, but it was good. Like at the end of it all, I'm really glad that we were all able to pull it all together. I think I'm pretty proud of most of the doodles that came out of it. But yeah, definitely difficult. Definitely something I would do again.
Yeah, I mean, I edited several of the posts, and I remember telling Sue at one point, I'm like, I'm reading these stories, and I'm telling people to cut stuff out of their stories, and I'm like, it's their story. Like, how can I be editing their story, and really had to come to the conclusion that, like, I'm trying to help them tell it more effectively, and that's really what the editing was about. But there was days where it was really challenging, where I'm like, how can I tell somebody that, they should cut this sentence or this paragraph out when it's to them it's obviously an important part of the story.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust went on, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually interesting because, I mean, Kristen and Sue know mine started out like this really long thing, and I just rambled for a while, and I was like, I don't, as I, I think before we started recording, or I don't really remember at this point, but it was one of those things where I was like, I had such difficulty writing this post, and it was one of those things where I was just like, I don't know, I'm just going to keep on writing, and I'm just going to put it in there, and something else will come out of it. So I definitely gave Kristen probably more work than she needed, but it was one of those things where I don't think it would have been as successful if Kristen didn't rework it, because when I, looking at the original to what it came, I was like, yeah, it was a mess before.
You know what? That's like how a lot of them went. I mean, even my own, when Kristen first got it too, she was like, "What are you getting at?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I draw. I don't write." But yeah, I mean, a lot of people. It was a very cathartic experience, I think, all around. Just a lot of stuff that even if you wrote something and we never saw it, like it was good for people for the most part. But yeah,
it was good.
Yes.
I hadn't talked about it in a while, and it made me talk about it again. And it's important to keep figuring out your story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was saying.
And how to talk about it.
Yeah. Because your story changes over time, and how you look at it is different, and what you learn from it is different a couple months down the road. It's interesting to see the differences.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Cool.
Well, that's really all. We just wanted to kind of have a chat and follow up with folks, and we're hoping to maybe do another one at some point. And really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this tonight. It was really fun talking to you all.
You should plug the next step now.
The book?
Yeah.
We plugged it. We just have to get on it.
There's some work involved.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've reached out to all the contributors, and I've heard back from mostly everybody about developing an ebook. So this is not the last you'll see of us, and I'm sorry in advance. Basically.
And then we're going to work on our stand-up comedy routine
Yeah.
and develop an improv troupe.
There we go.
Sue and I are just happy that this time we decided not to wear our PJs and our workout clothes for the hangout.
I mean, I'm pretty close though, so.
Yeah, I just painted, so painting clothes here. No judgment.
Nice. Why don't you call me? That's my thing.
Oh no, painting a house, not
Put it
painting.
drove down. I like houses too. I don't discriminate.
Feel free to come down here and help me work on my house.
Deal. I'll be there in 5 hours or more. Oh man.
Oh, well, thank you, everyone. And again, look to be hearing from us some more because Sue and I aren't done talking about this yet, and we hope you aren't either. So keep contributing to the conversation, and we'll keep doing that too. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.